This is CBC Vancouver News.
This transition plan to remove open net pen fish farms is supported by the majority of First Nations in British Columbia.
The feds delaying the closure of open net salmon farms off BC's coast is being met with praise and scorn. Plus, police looking into possible links between a now dead American serial killer and 2 unsolved murders in BC. Also,
so we're very pleased to have Chris come over and join us.
Another BC United candidate has left the party and joined the BC Conservatives, the 3rd defection in the past 2 months. Hello, I'm Jessica Cheung. Thanks for joining us. We'll start tonight with an update to the labor dispute between WestJet and its plane mechanics. WestJet workers have rescinded their strike notice, and both parties have agreed to return to the bargaining table. Now, earlier, the airline had to cancel flights, affecting thousands in anticipation of a strike. The company says it is now committed to finding resolution to avoid further disruption to its operations. WestJet's maintenance engineers and other technical workers had issued a 72-hour strike notice. The two sides have been trying since November to reach their first collective agreement. WestJet says it is working to resume normal operations as quickly as possible and urges customers to check their flight status. The union says talks between both sides is slated to start next week. The federal government is delaying its ban on open net salmon farms in BC, but as Rafferty Baker reports, that announcement comes with a clear deadline, an end to open net farms in 2029.
It's salmon farms like this along BC's coast, often growing Atlantic salmon to feed a hungry market, protein-rich food, and for many and often remote communities, good jobs. But the open net salmon farms are controversial. Wild salmon populations are in dramatic decline.
This keystone species is presently facing unprecedented threats. It is clear from all data sources that Pacific salmon are experiencing serious, sustained population declines, with many runs on the verge of collapse.
There's climate change, habitat destruction, overfishing, and Wilkinson also looks to the harm caused by the fish farming operations. That's a point with more and more support from independent scientists. In 2019, the federal Liberals campaigned on banning open net salmon farms, promising it would happen by 2025. So now a delay of 4 years.
This decision is a win for wild Pacific salmon.
For folks focused on the success of wild salmon, the clear deadline for the ban is a welcome development. BC is now the only jurisdiction on the west coast of North America where open net salmon farming is allowed. Washington State banned it 2 years ago.
Given the challenges that Pacific salmon face, we would have preferred a shorter timeline than the 5-year license announced today. Yet, we must acknowledge the need for thoughtful and well-supported transition for people.
And I can categorically say to all of you that this transition plan to remove open net pen fish farms is supported by the majority of First Nations in British Columbia.
Chamberlain says 120 First Nations support the government's new transition plan, but there are others who oppose the ban, citing the roughly 500 aquaculture jobs in remote First Nation communities.
It reduces the pressures of the wild stock and meets demand of affordability.
The feds say the license renewals will come with stricter rules, including better management of sea lice on farmed fish, improved industry accountability, and monitoring of interactions with sea mammals. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
Homicide investigators have now identified the victim of a killing in Surrey's Port Kells neighborhood. Police say 30-year-old Tori Dunn was found with life-threatening injuries on Sunday night in a home near 98th Avenue and 182nd A Street. She was rushed to hospital and later died. Officers arrested a suspect nearby. They're being held in jail for an unrelated charge. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team says its thoughts are with Tony's family and community. RCMP are searching for a suspect involved in an attempted sexual assault in Kelowna. Police say it happened along a trail at Mission Creek Regional Park just before 9 p.m. on June 9th. The suspect is described as a white man, about 50 to 60 years old with short gray hair. He was wearing a gray or white long-sleeve jacket with red coloring on the shoulders. Police are asking anyone with video surveillance or dash cam footage from the Mission Creek area between 8:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. on June 9th to contact them. They have some advice as well.
To be cognizant of where your surroundings are, and if you see anything suspicious, to please report it. We still encourage the use of the park and the trail system. It's just to ensure that you're aware of your surroundings, and if you see something, report it.
RCMP says it has increased patrols in the area. CBC News has learned there may be connections between a now dead American serial killer and two unsolved cases in BC. Police say advancements in DNA tracing technology linked Gary Allen Shriri to the deaths of 4 women in Alberta that happened decades ago. Ali Patarge has more on why his time in BC is now of interest.
It's been a month since Alberta's Historical Homicide Unit announced a breakthrough. Police linked now dead serial killer Gary Allen Shriri to the deaths of 4 young women in Calgary back in the 1970s. Now, police have told CBC News he may be linked to 2 unsolved murders in southwest BC. Police say Shriri spent time in BC from the mid to late 1970s until 2003, where he was deported back to the U.S. from New Westminster. They have not told us the details of the 2 BC cases, but for now, police are fielding tips from the public.
Based upon his criminal history, we truly believe that there's more victims that he's responsible for, both who could be victims of homicide or of serious assaults, because we know that he had surviving victims.
Investigators are working to piece together a timeline of Shriri's time in Canada. Here's what we know so far. Shriri fled to Calgary illegally around 1974 after a rape charge in California, where he had an extensive criminal record, including burglary and kidnapping. In Canada, he lived a transient lifestyle, working as a cook, and often changed appearances, places of residence, and aliases, including Willie Blackman and Rex Long. Mackenzie says he also worked in some capacity for BC Ferries. Around 1980, police believe he had made his way to the Lower Mainland, the Sunshine Coast, and the Fraser Valley. Then in 1998, he was arrested in New Westminster and jailed for 5 years before being deported back to Idaho in 2003. Police are focusing on his activities in the Lower Mainland and the Sunshine Coast in their investigation.
I'm quite optimistic that our investigation won't end with the release of our 4 victims and their killer being identified. We're hoping that we can share that message with more families. That's the goal here.
Anyone with information on Gary Allen Shriri is asked to contact the Alberta Historical Homicide Unit. Ali Patarga, CBC News, Vancouver.
Montreal police say they arrested a man in Prince George suspected of killing a Montreal rapper last month. Christopher Jean Vilson, also known as Dirty S, was shot and killed in Montreal on May 14th. The 27-year-old was known to police for being associated with street gangs. Police have now arrested a 31-year-old man in connection with his death at this Prince George motel. Officers say the suspects will be sent to Montreal to be charged with first-degree murder. A 25-year-old man was also arrested in Quebec on Wednesday and is facing a first-degree murder charge. And Montreal police have issued an arrest warrant for a 3rd man, Dylan Denis, who also allegedly participated in the killing. BC's police complainant commissioner has called its first ever public hearing into allegations of sexual misconduct involving a Vancouver police sergeant. BC's police complaint commissioner says the allegations against Kieran McConnell relate to his conduct towards 7 women, including police officers and former students, when he was an instructor at Royal Roads and Kwantlen Polytechnic Universities. The commissioner notes these allegations have not been proven. This is the first public hearing arranged by the Office of the Police Complaint Commissioner since changes came into effect that allowed a hearing to happen earlier in the police discipline process. A date for the hearing hasn't been set yet, and the complainants will remain anonymous. BC United has lost another candidate to the BC Conservatives as the fall provincial election inches closer. As Katie DeRosa reports, it's another blow to the official opposition as they try to combat sagging polling numbers.
The BC Conservatives have snagged another candidate from BC United, the third in the past 2 months. Conservative leader John Rustad introduced Chris Moore as the candidate for Powell River Sunshine Coast, a riding the BC NDP have held since 2005.
And of course, he was a former candidate for the BC United Party. So we're very pleased to have Chris come over and join us to be part of the team and to run and represent the Conservative Party of British Columbia.
A businessman and former councillor for the District of Sechelt, Moore says he left BC United because he was unhappy with their attacks on BC Conservative candidates. BC United tried to trump Moore's announcement with a message on social media Wednesday morning. The party claims Moore disagreed with the official opposition's strategy of releasing what they say is factual information about extremist BC Conservative candidates. Moore rejects that criticism, arguing he'd rather see the two right-of-centre parties work together to defeat the governing NDP.
The last thing I would be doing is joining an extremist party. That, though, does bring up one of the key components that I really struggled with the BC United was their communication strategy, this conflict between the United and the Conservatives, when in essence we are similar.
While Moore doesn't want to call his move a defection, it leaves BC United scrambling for a new candidate. It's already lost 2 MLAs to the BC Conservatives. Eleanor Sturko and Lauren Dirksen crossed the floor in recent weeks as polls put BC United a distant third behind the NDP and Conservatives. Moore's move also raises questions about whether any donations he raised under the BC United banner stays with that party or moves with him to the BC Conservatives. The Election Act isn't clear on that, leaving the door open for a legal challenge. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Communities in Nanaimo are one step closer to getting more cancer care. Island Health and BC Cancer have put in a request for proposals for a construction manager for a new cancer care center at Nanaimo Regional General Hospital. Construction is set to begin in summer of 2025 with the goal of seeing patients in 2027. BC's Health Ministry says it expects to choose a construction manager by August. The center will provide radiation therapy, an outpatient ambulatory center unit, and a new PET-CT machine to help people in Nanaimo. Some welcome news for swimmers upset about the closure of the beloved and aging Kitsilano pool. Vancouver's mayor and a fellow ABC councillor have put forward a motion to replace it. Mayor Ken Sim and City Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young say Kit's pool is now at the end of its service life after being in use for over 50 years. They suggest a new pool should be built with whirlpools, steam baths, and improved accessibility. The motion asks City and Park Board staff to report back to Council with a funding plan for pool replacement by the end of July. The motion will go to Council next week. One of BC's last standing grain elevators is being torn down. Creston has been home to 2 iconic elevators since the 1930s. The nearly 6-story high structures were originally used to collect and store locally grown grain products. Columbia Basin Trust bought the pair in 2018 to try to preserve the historic structures and the community's agricultural roots. While one of them was successfully restored last year, the neighboring elevator has now become a safety issue. The trust says the white elevator has a failing foundation along with internal and roof structures.
Despite this very difficult news, we are really proud of what's been accomplished with the red elevator, with a lot of community support to get it to the state that it's in today. So we do say to residents that there is reason to be proud that part of your incredible heritage has been preserved, and we do look forward to the future conversations of other uses for the salvaged material on that site. And I think in future we could look back at this as being a very difficult but necessary decision.
Strelayev says much of the lumber from the structure will be salvaged and used for community projects, and the trust plans to work with the community to find uses for the vacant land once the structure is taken down. Are all poultry equal in the eyes of the law? Well, that's a question that's come up after the city of Vancouver lost a bid to overturn a court decision about guinea fowl. The provincial court decision found a woman was keeping the birds as pets, and now BC Supreme Court has also sided with her. Beneath Brach spoke with our Yasmin Granea about the decision earlier.
How did this court battle start? To understand this bizarre battle, you have to go back to 2022. Ariel Reed, pictured here, had 2 guinea fowl hens in her backyard, and she was living in East Vancouver. Her neighbors complained to the city that the birds were too noisy. She was charged under a city bylaw, and she was ordered to remove them. There they are, Ghost and Darkness. And so she was ordered to remove them, but then she went to court, took the city of Vancouver to court, and a judge sided with her, as you said. He said that she was keeping them as pets for the joy of companionship, and the city of Vancouver was not happy with that. Flash forward, BC Supreme Court, they said it doesn't matter why she was keeping them, it still violates the bylaw, but a BC Supreme Court judge said, nope, because the bylaw doesn't explicitly say guinea fowl. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so clearly so much dedication here.
Yes.
How is she feeling about this victory?
Well, you know, Benny, it's actually very bittersweet because on one hand, she represented herself and won twice against the city, but she had to rehome Ghost and Darkness because she was afraid she was going to lose in court. So they live on a farm in Pemberton now. So she, in her eyes, there aren't really any winners. She says she wishes that she and the city could have worked something out outside of court. And yeah, because this took her a lot of time, effort, and money, and also on the city, which, by the way, if they choose to, they can escalate this even further to the province's highest court.
Not the highest court.
Yes, and they have about a month to appeal that decision, but they tell me they're still, you know, considering their options, looking at the decision.
Well, who knows? Maybe they will reunite. Thank you. All right, thanks, Yasmin.
Still to come, a massive test for the Canadian men's soccer team in this year's Copa America tournament. That's Lionel Messi and the World Cup champions Argentina. How are their chances for tomorrow's game? We'll have the latest from Atlanta after the break. Welcome back. Canada's national men's soccer team is set for another big international test. For the first time ever, the country will compete in the Copa America tournament, and its debut match is a banger, taking on World Cup champion Argentina, led by the great Lionel Messi. Jamie Strachan is with the team.
For Canada's men's soccer team, another huge international test. The Copa America features the best of South, Central, and North America. And Canada starts off against arguably the best of them all. Canada, massive underdogs against Lionel Messi and world champions Argentina.
The uniqueness of having the global football spotlight on you, playing the best team in the world that has potentially the greatest player of all time, that is special.
After failing to win a game at the World Cup, Copa America, the South American Championships, offers Canada another chance to prove itself as it prepares to host the World Cup in 2 years.
If Canada wants to be competitive on home soil in 2 years' time, then they really have to be playing teams of this caliber on a regular basis, of Argentina, Peru, and Chile.
Canada's roster under new coach Jesse Marsh, much the same as the World Cup, including international stars Alphonso Davies, Kyle Larin, and Tejan Buchanan. But the biggest draw this week is Lionel Messi, global superstar. The sold-out crowd in Atlanta will include Messi fans from around the world, including this father and son from Vaughan, just north of Toronto.
I'm from Argentina and I'm from Canada. And I met almost all the players in Canada, but I also met almost all the players in Argentina. And Messi is one of my favorite players.
They traveled to Qatar to watch Messi play in the World Cup, making the much shorter trip to Atlanta an easy decision.
I'd be happy with that. Just the fact that I'm there and get to witness this game that doesn't happen often with both my countries involved. It's a win-win for me.
All hoping to see Canada put its best foot forward against one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Atlanta.
And this was the sunset over Burnaby this evening. Look how beautiful that is. It really felt like summer today, and it looks like the warm and sunny weather is going to stick around. We'll have your full forecast next.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
All right, now it's time to check in with our Darius Madavi for our weather forecast. It is getting hot outside, definitely feeling like summer.
Oh yes, first day of summer tomorrow, and the weather has come to match it. It's very exciting stuff. Nothing but blue skies across the vast majority of the province. Temperatures climbing everywhere. Most places will be above seasonal for the first day of summer. A few places right at seasonal or just a degree or two below. Nothing but sunny skies really for most people. Maybe a few storms popping up in the afternoons, but as you can see, not much cloud moving in. Maybe by the end of the day Friday we start to see some cloud moving in over northern and western parts of the island, and then maybe a few stray showers making it to the North Island overnight Friday into Saturday. Generally for the South Island and here in the Lower Mainland, we're going to be pretty dry. If we take a look across the rest of the province, again, some convective showery activity, maybe some storms popping up in places, but other than that, just going to be clear in the afternoon periods. When it gets hot, that cloud might rise a little bit and we'll see a little bit of that rain, of that cloud, but generally speaking, until overnight Friday into Saturday when we see that move in, it's going to be a pretty dry and hot time. Now, also going to be humid in many places, including here on the coast tomorrow and Friday, so be ready for temperatures to feel a little bit warmer than they actually are, and be ready for a bit of a muggy day. Not quite muggy, I wouldn't say muggy. It'll be pleasantly hot and just a little bit more humid than maybe you would hope for, but still very pleasant. And I think we're all tired of the cool and wet weather, so I think some dry and hot days ahead are going to be a very welcome time for everybody. So looks like it should be a dry first weekend dry first summer weekend for most people. Good news for people who want to get outside and enjoy the beach. Not so great news in terms of our fire danger in the north, which I have to point out is continuing to climb, but hopefully as that rain comes this weekend, it'll also make its way not just to the northwest, but to the northeast as well. And for me personally, it stays off our beaches here in Vancouver. I would appreciate that. Again, some convective storms possible, but generally speaking, it's going to be lots of sunshine. That's only a slight chance of storms in all those places. I hate showing that map because it kind of overstates the amount of storms we're going to have, but I should show it anyway. Now, in terms of the sunshine, just lots of it, and then our first chance of rain, maybe late Sunday, but probably going to be Monday.
Okay, well, at least we have that weekend with the sun. I'll definitely take it. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Jess.
And that is your late news for this Wednesday, June 19th. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. You can always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. We'll leave you with a shot of the nearly full moon, ready to greet the summer solstice. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful night.